What would you do if you saw ghostly figures riding through the night sky on the backs of flying goats, chanting spells that promised chaos and destruction? Welcome to the chilling legend of the Bokkenrijders, or the Buckriders, a tale of demonic packs and ruthless outlaws that terrorized 18th century Europe. But here's the twist. This isn't just a myth. Behind the folklore lies a brutal history of crime, torture, and witch trials. It's the 1700s in the misty regions of Limburg and Brabant. A series of terrifying raids are plaguing the countryside, but these aren't your typical robbers. These criminals were marketing geniuses who created one of the most compelling legends in outlaw history by convincing everyone they were flying through the night sky on demon goats given to them by the devil himself. The Buckriders were absolutely real. They were gangs who robbed farms and churches and sent threatening fire letters promising to burn houses down. But what made them truly extraordinary was how they elevated their criminal enterprise by embracing the supernatural. It's as if modern bank robbers managed to convince everyone they were actual vampires, and people genuinely believed them. These criminals wrapped themselves in supernatural mystique so effectively that their legend has endured for centuries. Now grab some popcorn and enjoy the show.
In the enchanted valleys of ancient Limburg, where moonlit mists weave silver tapestries between what is now the Netherlands and Belgium, there dwells a legend that dances on the edge of nightmare and dream. This is the ethereal tale of the Bokkenrijders, the mysterious goat riders whose otherworldly presence haunted these mystical lands in the bewitching age of the 18th century. These were no mere mortals who walked the path of shadow. As twilight's purple veil descended over the ethereal fields and ancient forests, they would materialize like phantoms in the star-studded heavens, astride not earthly steeds, but magnificent obsidian goats, whose eyes blazed like captured stars. Their passage through the celestial vault sent whispers of terror rippling through the mortal realm below. The thunderous echo of supernatural hooves rolling across the midnight clouds. The Bokkenrijders were said to be bound by an arcane covenant with the Master of Darkness himself. Through this forbidden alliance, they transcended mortal limitations, gaining powers that defied the very laws of nature. Their enchanted unguents granted them the ability to phase through solid stone, to cloak themselves in invisibility's embrace, and to soar through the crystalline night air upon their otherworldly mounts. Yet here is where mystical legend intertwines with earthly truth. For the Bokkenrijders existed beyond the realm of mere folklore. In the years between 1730 and 1774, mortal bands of cunning brigands prowled these mystical lands, wielding supernatural fear as their most potent weapon. They adorned themselves with grotesque masks of demonic goats, transforming superstition into an instrument of terror. It was whispered that these elusive riders, though often branded as common thieves, sometimes shared their ill-gotten gains with the poor. Their wrath, however, was said to be swift and merciless. Should one fail to fulfill their demands, legend holds that entire farms might be consigned to the flames. Some claim they stole from the corrupt church and championed the cause of miners who toiled beneath the very feet of wealthy noblemen. Most bewitching of all was their mortal disguise. These weren't mysterious sorcerers or dark spirits incarnate. They walked among the common folk as respected members of the mortal realm. Artisans of craft, merchants of trade, even keepers of law. When golden sunlight blessed the land, they wore the mask of ordinary life. But when night's dark enchantment held sway, they gathered in moonlit ceremonies, their dark purposes hidden behind veils of secrecy. Their reign of supernatural terror seemed eternal until fate's hand finally drew them into mortality's grasp. They endured tortures so gruesome that confession seemed the only escape, deepening the dark aura that forever clings to the legend of the Bokkenrijders. Their punishment was severe. Death's embrace awaited those found guilty, their mortal forms displayed as grim warnings to others who might be tempted by darkness's seductive call. To this very day, when ethereal mists dance across the ancient fields of Limburg, and the moon hangs like a luminous pearl in the velvet sky, those with ears attuned to the supernatural swear they still hear it. The mystical resonance of otherworldly hooves beating against the fabric of night, the whispered echoes of dark rituals carried on enchanted winds. Though the Bokkenrijders may have passed into shadow, their legacy lives eternal, in tales whispered by candlelight and in wary glances cast toward the bewitched night sky. Were they truly blessed with powers beyond mortal ken? Or were they merely clever mortals who understood the arcane power of fear and belief? Perhaps such mysteries are best left veiled in shadow. For in the deepest heart of night, when strange symphonies echo from above, even the most steadfast skeptic might wonder, do the goat riders still weave their dark enchantments across the midnight skies of Limburg?
Now that we've experienced the eerie moonlight rides of Bokkenrijders, let's dig a little deeper into how this legend intertwines with real history, particularly the corruption of the church, the brutal torture methods of the era, and the tense socioeconomic climate that fueled both fear and fascination. In 18th century Limburg, the Catholic Church wasn't just a spiritual guide. It was a powerhouse that collected tithes, owned sprawling properties, and often pulled the strings in local governance. Whispers of inflated dues and misappropriated funds fanned the flames of discontent among impoverished parishioners. Meanwhile, wealthy farmers, sometimes seen as just as exploitative, charged sky-high rents or skimmed profits off those toiling under them. This created a tinderbox of resentment. So when rumors spread that Bokkenrijders were raiding church vaults and grand estate, many folks couldn't help but see a twisted poetic justice. But here's where things take a truly grim turn. Accusations of diabolic pacts and devil worship meant these weren't treated as mere robberies. Instead, the church and its allies branded the crimes as heresy, a mortal threat to both societal order and the very soul of the community. Fear is a potent weapon, and the authorities were quick to label Bokkenrijders as Satan's own foot soldiers, much like the witch trials of earlier centuries. Suspects were carted off and subjected to interrogations so harrowing they sound like something out of a horror story. Let's look at a few of them. The rack. Victims were laid out on a wooden frame and strapped at the wrists and ankles. Each turn of the rollers tugged limbs agonizingly apart, producing a crescendo of pain that often elicited the confessions interrogators wanted. The strappado. The accused had their hands bound behind their back before being hoisted aloft by a rope, sometimes with extra weights pulling at their feet. One sudden drop and a violent jerk on the shoulders could dislocate joints. Thumbscrews. These tiny vices clamped down on the victim's thumbs, tightened turn by excruciating turn. Executions became grand spectacles, a macabre blend of punishment and propaganda, showcasing the church as the righteous bulwark against evil incarnate. Were these thieves genuinely driven by fury against corrupt elites, or were they opportunistic criminals exploiting local superstition? The answer remains murky, yet that same murkiness is part of what keeps the Bokkenrijders' legacy alive. At the end of the day, the tale of the Bokkenrijders is also a window into an era when survival was precautious, authority was iron-fisted, and fear, whether of witchcraft, devil worship, or starvation, could be twisted into an unstoppable force. And so the legend endures, half cautionary tale about unchecked power, half ghost story, reminding us that beneath the moonlit sky, history and myth can become indistinguishable shadows.